Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Nostalgia Bubble podcast, the show where two lifelong best friends celebrate the movies that they love. I'm one of your hosts, Shuggie, an amateur film reviewer nerd.
And I am Nye, Shuggie's little helper.
Christmas themed.
Yeah.
That works great because we are talking Christmas movies this month.
Yes, we are. I'm already in the festive spirit. I mean, I've been in the festive spirit since about mid-November. We've needed it this year, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, festive spirits here because we had some snow on Friday.
Well, where you are.
Yeah, where I am. And went and got my Christmas tree yesterday.
Nice.
Smashed
How's it looking?
Yeah, it's alright. Smashed out all my Christmas shopping. I am on it.
Damn. You got your Christmas shopping done already?
Yeah, get in early. And today it's my Christmas pick. And I decided we are talking about, to give it its full title, Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. Or as we will be calling it, The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yes. I hadn't seen this one before.
Really?
Yeah, really. I'd heard people talking about seeing this at Halloween. And it was just one that I'd never seen before. So it was nice. It was good to watch a film that I'd not watched. Stop motion.
Yeah.
Which is fun. I think this is the first stop motion film we've seen.
I think it's our first Disney film as well.
Oh yeah, it is. We have spoken about stop motion in Jason and the Argonauts.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But it wasn't full stop motion.
Yeah, full production of stop motion. It was impressive.
Yeah.
Very impressive. Yeah. So, yeah, The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah. So, it's called Tim Burton's The Night Before Christmas, despite the fact he neither wrote nor directed the film.
So, what impact did he have on the production of the film?
Yeah, so he used to work at Walt Disney Feature Animation back in the early 80s, like before he did Beetlejuice and Batman and all these things that made him a massive star.
Yeah.
And he wrote a 3-page poem titled The Nightmare Before Christmas. And his sort of plan at the time was he wanted to make it into, maybe a TV special or, a children's book, something like that. And he created some concept art and someone called Rick Heinrichs sculpted character models. And while he was there, Burton showed this kind of work in progress from the two men to Henry Selick, who eventually directed this film. But any sort of ideas of the production stalled, and Burton left Disney in 1984. I think he was actually sacked because they decided his sort of ideas didn't mesh with theirs. And then he obviously...
And this is before the film came out.
Way before.
Yeah. This is about 10 years?
10 years before, yeah.
Something like that. And which, I mean, the fact that they kicked him out and then ran with his...
So it kind of languished and nothing really happening. It stalled.
Yeah.
So Burton then found out in sort of 1990 that Disney still owned the rights. And he and Selick basically committed to making a full-length film, which Disney wanted to back because Burton had this huge success. And they just found success again in animation. I think The Little Mermaid was the year before.
Right.
But Burton couldn't actually do anything because he was making Batman Returns, aka the only good one of those original 4 Batman films. So he brought on a screenwriter, Michael McDowell, and they had massive creative differences over the project. So Burton decided to shift it to a musical, and that's when he brought on Danny Elfman, who said that writing the songs for this film was one of the easiest jobs he ever had. He said he had a lot of common with Jack Skellington, so the music flowed from him, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, he was brilliant in it.
Yeah. I mean, I think Danny Elfman steals this film. Like, his singing voice as Jack is great. His music is wonderful.
Yeah.
The songs are brilliant. I'm sure we'll get into all of this.
So musical theatre.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things is how involved Tim Burton actually was from that point. And Selick actually sort of suggests, not hugely, like, he described it as Burton laid the egg and Selick sat on it and hatched it. He wasn't involved in a hands-on way, but his hands are in it. It was Selick's job to make it look like a Tim Burton film.
Right.
And I think he said it was about over 5 years. Over 2 years. Tim Burton only came to visit the production about 5 times and was only there for about 8 to 10 days in total. So he was not actually that hands-on involved with the production at all.
Okay.
So let's get into the film, I guess.
Yeah. So
Actually,
I mean,
before we go anywhere else with the film, there's sort of some opening narration before we get into it, and in the film, this is provided by Ed Ivory, who plays Santa/Sandy Claus. On the soundtrack, you can actually get the original narration that was recorded for this, which is done by Patrick Stewart.
really.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So Patrick Stewart recorded the soundtrack, but wasn't.
So yeah, he recorded narration, like the opening narration for the film.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they cut it out and replaced it with Ed Ivory, but the Stewart version is still on the soundtrack that you can buy and listen to.
Oh, brilliant! I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it.
Yeah, you will.
Speaking of appearances, I was shocked. You know when people just kind of pop up in productions and you don't expect them to?
Yeah.
Catherine O'Hara, having just watched her as Moira Rose in Schitt's Creek,
Same,
which I know you've
same,
just
yes.
finished, and she is phenomenal in it. I mean, she's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it was just quite a kind of
She's a bit of a
unexpected little sort of nugget of information, which kind of made me laugh a little bit.
she's a bit of a Christmas movie legend. Like she's got this, she's got Home Alone.
Yeah, I guess she is. Yeah, she's built quite the repertoire.
Exactly.
Do you reckon she cashes in every Christmas?
maybe. How do you want to go through this? I think we should go through this kind of by
Lead
song
the way.
almost. Because it's sort of built around a sort of 11 songs that influence a lot of plot points. So
Yeah.
we open with kind of This Is Halloween, which obviously is not a particularly Christmassy song. And this is where we get to see all the awesome stop motion designs. Like, these things are stunning. They're so creative and weird.
I was shocked at how great this was.
Yeah.
I kind of thought that 93 it's not kind of like the most prolific stop motion film as far as I know anyway. I know that Wallace and Gromit are kind of more famously.
Yeah, so you have all the Arden stuff, and then more recently you have like Leica, who did Kubo and the Two Strings, things like that.
Yeah, so having not seen, I don't think I've seen any other Disney stop motion.
I don't know if they've done much else.
Yeah, and so I wasn't expecting loads, but I was very pleasantly surprised, and I was actually kind of surprised at how weird and uncomfortable it was. Some of the stuff that, like, there was a little kid with his eyes sewn shut, or with his left eye sewn shut, and
yeah, a lot of just the background characters in Halloween Town are amazingly bizarre.
Yeah, I really, I liked how bizarre it was. That's a good word to use, definitely.
And we kind of get introduced to a lot of the major characters here. We get, it lingers on Sally a couple of times during this, so we get that she's important immediately. We get the kind of shadow outline of Oogie Boogie, but we don't see him for a long time in the film, who's the major villain.
Yeah.
And then there's obviously the big hype up of Jack at the end.
Yeah. So I'd always seen images of Jack Skellington. I wasn't completely aware of where it was from.
Okay.
And actually the same with the song that he sings when he enters Christmas Land.
What's this?
Yes. So, which is brilliant. And I knew that song, but didn't have a clue that it was from this.
Yeah.
So there were kind of a couple of those moments as well for me. But yeah, and he sets himself on fire. He's a scarecrow before, isn't he?
He's the Pumpkin King.
Pumpkin King. He looks like a scarecrow at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and then he jumps into a fountain.
Yeah, and emerges as Jack, as we all know him.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it's kind of an introductory song. You establish this is Halloween Town. They are in charge of putting on Halloween and making it a scary holiday. And
it's fairly typical for sort of an opening song.
Yeah.
You see the kind of kookiness of the characters it sets the tone. But yeah, I mean, it was well written. Across the board, it was pretty well written, actually.
Yeah, because then we just immediately go into the first kind of character establishing song, which is Jack's Lament, where
Yeah,
we learn that Jack is bored of the monotony of fulfilling Halloween every year, never doing anything new, and he's tired, and he wants to get out of this rut, essentially.
yeah. Um, I was surprised that actually it went so quickly into another song.
Mm.
That in itself kind of set the tone for me as well.
Yeah.
Kind of set up the film in itself.
It's only like a
And obviously
70,
the story.
75 minute film, and there's like 11 songs,
Yeah.
so a lot of
Yeah,
it is musical.
Yeah, it's yeah, I think it's not a long film.
No, sure.
So yeah, I really liked some of the imagery in this.
Well, I imagine this is like the first image people think of when they think of Nightmare Before Christmas is
When he's
Jack
walking
on
up the hill
the
front of the
the
moon.
curly ridge, yeah.
Yeah. And it was what was really interesting was that so watching this compared to something like Wallace and Gromit was I felt like this kind of worked a lot more with landscape,
Okay.
like a whole kind of landscape of set, rather than like Wallace and Gromit tended to work kind of more up close. Obviously, they had moments, especially like when they're skiing on the cheese moon and stuff.
Yeah.
On Grand Day Out, but yeah, this one tended to kind of go for more sort of wide shots, setting up the sort of surrounding areas, and which I found kind of visually really entertaining.
Yeah, it really helps establish Halloween Town as its presence. Like this is what this town is, and that's like a big part of the film is Jack trying to get Halloween Town and its residents to shift their mindset, and the fact that we spend so long with these kind of big establishing shots of what everything is. Again, we go back to the word bizarre, weird, classic Tim Burton stuff. That really helps set up the struggle that Jack has changing everyone's minds. And also we kind of get the first indications in this song. Sally overhears him and she shares his feelings. She feels trapped because she is literally trapped by Dr. Finkelstein,
who is creepy,
weird.
He gave me do you remember, is it the first Toy Story where there's the doll's head on the spider?
Yeah.
He gave me those sort of vibes.
I can see it. He's a weird sort of duck mad scientist who opens up the top of his head to scratch his brain.
Yeah. That was a bit weird.
It was very weird.
I mean, the whole thing's weird. The whole thing's weird. But that's the thing, like the kind of the oddness of these characters, like even the kind of more peripheral characters, like they've clearly invested in making these as weird as possible.
Yeah, you can tell like the people who made the character models and designs, they had a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so Jack, in his lament of his boredom and tiredness with his life, he finds he's out walking his ghost dog Zero.
Cute.
So cute.
I mean, as soon as he popped out of his grave, I was super. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm a huge fan of dogs, and yeah, I think Shug begrudges me that. He's a cat person.
I'm more of a cat person.
I don't know how I didn't see it coming that Zero was going to be
Rudolph.
His Rudolph.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like straight away he pops up with a shiny nose, and I just didn't see that coming for some reason. Yes. So he's walking through the woods with his dog Zero.
Yeah, they find these portals to all the other holidays, and if they ever do a sequel, this is obviously they'll go to one of these other places.
Yeah.
And
I really liked that concept as well. Just the idea that you could kind of step through. It was almost like a different dimension.
Yeah. Like this is the Halloween dimension, and there's a Thanksgiving one, a St. Patrick's. I want to see the St. Patrick's Day, the Nightmare Before St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, and then there's Easter,
Which that one comes back. There's a good
which
joke
they
for
end
that.
up getting the bunny.
Yeah, that's a good bit.
Yeah.
That's a good joke.
Christmas,
And
obviously Halloween.
yeah,
Is there another one?
they show a few. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But this has not been a particularly Christmassy episode so far. So let's go into Christmas Land.
Oh God, it's like
What's this?
it's like stepping into your idea, like a kid's idea of Lapland.
Yeah.
And it sort of also reminded me a little bit. I kind of got flashbacks of Monsters Inc. You know when
they're going through the doors.
Sully falls through the door.
Yeah.
And he kind of sees the town below. Am I remembering that right? I don't know, but yeah, it kind of when they're going through the doors, like that's the kind of vibe that I got. Like this,
yeah.
the kind of stepping into a world that is literally kind of just there, but they're so unfamiliar with, and yeah, I loved it. Again, this was where the stop motion got very impressive for me.
Oh yeah, no. At this point, I've forgotten it's stop motion, and this could be your beautifully rendered CGI animation, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and my favourite song in the film, I think.
What's this?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the Christmas song. Let's be honest.
Yeah, well, I think this is, considering I already knew it. Surely it's like the defining song of the film. It's the one that everybody knows, right?
It's up there. It's up there. I think Halloween Town's one. I think Oogie Boogie song is pretty high as well.
Yeah. I mean, you've already quoted "What's This?" I mean, like you've already started singing it. Like that's what I've heard people singing before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it brings out the kid in you. Or the kind of the different type of kid in you, because there's something about the Halloween town that kind of gets you going about Halloween.
The darkness in you is into
that kid that's gonna grow into something horrible.
Yeah, I mean Halloween's my favourite holiday, so I love all the Halloween stuff, and that's why I picked this film.
Yeah, see, I've never understood the hype about Halloween.
I'm a big sort of cosplay fan, and I love the kind of just relaxed party vibe. Eat tons of candy.
Yeah.
More than.
I do remember good old trick or treating.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for me, I love Christmas. So I guess this film is a bit of both of us.
Yeah.
Christmas Land was great. I loved it.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and the song is great, and again, Danny Elfman is so good.
It was really nice having not seen this film before as well, because I couldn't anticipate where it was going. Obviously, he'd kind of fallen upon Christmas Land. He got sucked into the tree and then fell, and he was there. It was nice to kind of not know where it was going.
Yeah.
I didn't know whether he was going to stay there or and obviously he didn't. He tried to bring Christmas back. Well,
yeah, and that's where we kind of go next, is this whole town meeting song where he's attempting to sell the idea of Christmas to the residents of Halloween Town, and they just don't understand it at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of poignant in a sense. Like he's trying to change a kind of a cultural mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's ultimately, what he ends up doing is realizing that the only way he can change their minds is by putting it in a way that only they will understand, and sort of contextualizing it in their world and from their worldview. I mean, as somebody as well who has spent a lot of kind of, I've been very lucky that I've been able to kind of like go away and to a lot of different countries and see different lifestyles and things. Like that kind of idea that you go away and then when you come back everything else is the same and actually you're the one that's changed. and you feel like you don't fit in because you've developed and broadened your horizons. So like, although that's very niche, it kind of resonated with me a little bit.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's nice. And I love the comedy in this moment. You know, he's trying to explain presents, and they assume that something horrible's in there. You know,
Yeah.
stockings and you know, is there a human foot in it? Stuff like that. And then
Yeah.
he eventually just gives up, and his portrayal of Santa to them is this fearsome ruler, Sandy Claus,
Yeah.
which sets up for the great
again,
joke later where they kidnap him, and he's like, "You haven't even got any claws. You have hands."
yeah, I mean, again, this is about him setting up for them in a way that they'll understand, isn't it? And
Yeah.
yeah, it's the whole thing seems to just kind of be underpinned by this sense of like real struggle to kind of get Christmas going, and like I don't want to kind of try and intellectualize it too much, because it is kind of
I don't believe
just
you. Intellectualize away.
it just seems like the whole thing is about how he kind of is trying to make a big sort of, like I said, create a cultural shift.
Yeah, 100%.
And how these people, they don't refuse to do it because they don't want to. They refuse to do it because they don't understand.
They are very supportive the whole time of him. Like,
Yeah.
I remember, I don't remember the first time I watched it, but you know, kind of the first time I watched it in recent memory, I was like, "Do the other town gonna turn on him?" And at no point did they do that.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to tell whether they're kind of singing along with it because they think, because they've got their own idea of what he means in their head and that's what they like, or whether they genuinely like what he's pitching, but they don't quite understand, if that makes sense.
Probably
like,
a little
hard
bit
to
of
tell,
both. Like, it's probably
hard to tell
merging
which
of
way
the two.
round it is.
I think it's probably a little bit of both, a bit of merging of
Yeah.
the two.
Yeah. I think, so for me, I found the mayor very funny. Just kind of the way that
I
he
do
was
like
like,
that.
everything that Jack came out with, he was like, yes, absolutely.
Well, he's got one of my favourite moments, which is like the next day, and he's like, "It's only 365 days till next Halloween. We've got to do it now."
Yeah. Yeah, and then he gets swiftly reminded it's 364.
Yeah, the werewolf guy.
Yeah. The one thing I didn't quite understand right at the end as well, was when Santa was flying away, and he's got to go and save Christmas on Christmas Day, and he says Happy Halloween, and I'm like, is it just like because it's always Halloween there, or it's not because they've been counting down?
Well, it's
so is
it's
Halloween the same day as Christmas in? Because it's actually Halloween in Halloween Town that day, because they then celebrate it, but then Santa goes off and saves Christmas.
You're definitely reading too much into this. I think
I told you I didn't want to intellectualize it.
I think maybe necessarily the time in these worlds like Christmas Town and Halloween Town doesn't run as similar as time in the human world. Like,
Okay.
it's always.
But there is an overlap of the human world.
Yeah, but I think it's probably always whatever holiday they are dedicated to, but it's not always that holiday in the human world. Is probably.
But
where
is
it's
it?
at.
Because in Halloween Town they're counting down the days to the next Halloween.
Yeah. No. But that's Halloween in the human world. For them, it's always Halloween. Is probably where it's at.
Right. Okay. I understand.
That's what
Now
I
get
read
it.
into it anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for clarifying. Thanks for clearing up my confusion with a kids Disney stop motion film about Christmas and Halloween.
Yeah. When you put it like that, we come across as very smart people.
Yeah, it's not like it's
This isn't Mulholland Drive.
yeah. Yeah. So thanks for clearing up possibly one of the more basic films we're going to cover. It's not Inception, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Although I can clear that up for you as well if you want.
I think I've actually got my head around
Yeah,
Inception.
it's not as complicated as everyone says.
Yeah.
So this is also, I think, where a lot of the major subplot of the film, which is Sally and kind of her relationship with Jack, comes through. There's a lot here.
Yeah. I mean, them meeting and kind of forging a relationship does happen very quickly. I feel like there's a lot of build up, and then literally within the space of about 3 or 4 minutes, they've met and she's helping him.
So I think
Although he doesn't
she
know it, but
yeah, she is very obviously from the opening songs of the film smitten with Jack.
yeah,
And this is kind of where he starts to realise, when she brings the hamper of stuff, she kind of does understand what he's going through. And she also has, at this point, has kind of a vision of his idea of Christmas going horribly wrong. When she picks up the flower, it turns into a Christmas ornament and then sets alight.
yeah.
But yeah, I think she is smitten with him from the off, and he just doesn't realise it, but slowly comes to accept that she's the one who feels the same. Like, they're both trapped in some way. Her literally.
Yeah. Her literally.
And yeah,
Figuratively, yeah.
at the point where she where she brings him the hamper, she has to throw herself out of Dr. Finkelstein's window and sew herself back together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it feels quite typical of kind of like that back and forth love story that you see in a lot of films.
Yeah, it's not hugely well developed.
And I guess given the target audience, it's not necessarily intended to be particularly complex. It doesn't necessarily explore I'm going to say it again, the layers of and the sort of various levels of relationships.
Yeah,
But,
and I feel it's very much a subplot in this film. You see Disney films, it's the relationship is often pushed to the fore. Look at something like Tangled. It is built around this relationship with the two characters. Whereas in this, it's the subplot, and it's Jack, his kind of messing up of Christmas, and his attempts to bring it to the people of Halloween Town. That's the principal plotline.
yeah. Which is quite nice, actually. It's nice that there's not too much of an emphasis on the relationship.
Yeah.
In relation to the kind of the main storyline.
Yeah, and then this is where we have Jack's Obsession as the next song, where he's trying to understand Christmas. He's got all sorts of experiments going on. He's got equations on the whiteboard or the chalkboard. Yeah. And this is where he decides to take over Christmas.
Yes. So when this happened, I kind of felt like he was still very much rooted in Halloween Land.
Yeah.
And this is where you kind of see his sort of he's inherently kind of gonna be king of the pumpkins. That's who he is. That's when that side kind of reappears after a while of him trying to sort of almost escape it.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to hear from you, because this is the first time you watched it. At this point, where did you think the film would be going, like with Jack's story?
To be honest, I thought that because he still kind of maintained good intentions, which, like you said, like nobody in Halloween Land stopped supporting him. Like everybody was actually all the creatures and I don't want to say people, but all the beings in Halloween Land weren't horrible, weren't grotesque, weren't unkind, apart from maybe the scientist
and Oogie Boogie.
And Oogie Boogie, but yeah, I mean the scientist was actually kind of a sicko.
Oh no, he's horrible.
Yeah, but yeah, like generally, nobody was sort of mean spirited in a way. So I kind of expected him to. I thought he was basically just going to be driven mad, and he was going to, because he couldn't control it, he was just going to ruin it. But yeah, obviously it turns out that he wants to try and make it work, and then he inadvertently ruins it.
Yeah, I like that his
Yeah.
ultimate aim is not switching to become some kind of Christmas thing. It's very much, he rediscovers his love of Halloween, and this actually gives him new ideas that he can try.
Yeah. I mean, like, there was just one shot where he's kind of like, he's dressed up as Santa and he's looming over the camera. And that was kind of when I thought, okay, he's going to get vicious. But, yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that it kind of rekindles
Yeah,
his sort of passion for Halloween.
and I think you're right that this is where that kind of starts happening, but he doesn't realise it till the end.
Yeah, it takes a while. I think until he's kind of in the graveyard.
Oh, 100%. That's
Once
when
he's
it is.
been,
Yeah.
Once he's kind of been shot down by the police.
Yep. The army.
By
the army's
army.
out.
Obviously then he goes to human land.
Well, we're skipping ahead quite a lot. We're skipping ahead very far now.
Okay, yeah, okay,
carry on.
Sorry,
let's fall back
I'm
to where we
getting
are,
ahead of myself.
because during this song we're introduced to Lock, Shock and Barrel, who are Oogie Boogie's little helpers.
Yeah.
They're very entertaining for me. I like them a lot. And I really enjoy their song Kidnap the Sandy Claus.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they just bring a little bit of humour in, don't they? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. The whole thing is funny and weird and odd, but it's not kind of outwardly a comedy.
Yeah, and this is where they kidnap the Easter Bunny, and that is
Yeah.
a very funny bit. But also this is like our second small hint of Oogie Boogie. They still don't reveal him. They still only show him in shadow.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting, because we've talked, quite a lot, actually, in previous episodes about withholding something from the audience. Yeah. And their decision to keep withholding Oogie Boogie is a really strong one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess it's also kind of appropriate, isn't it? Because a lot of Halloween, and not even just Halloween, but a lot of things that kids are scared of are stories and things they hear about, and like the ideas that they get.
The boogeyman.
The idea that there's something under the bed or something.
Baba
in the closet.
Yaga.
Yeah. Baba Yaga. Oh god. Next Halloween.
That's the really tangentially linked one for next Halloween, is we're doing John Wick because he's called the boogeyman.
Yeah, I mean, so it kind of makes sense. Like, you see it for cinematic purposes in Jurassic Park,
yeah,
and other films, but for this, it sort of works beyond it just working for the film. Like, it fits into the context of the story as well, which I think is clever more than anything else. It's just kind of shows like a real kind of understanding of the culture that surrounds this film.
Yeah, that's really good. And we see kind of as they prepare for their own Christmas, they're changing all the toys and making them all very horrific.
Yeah.
Finkelstein's making reindeer for Jack, which are skeletal, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, this is my kind of Christmas.
Just like Halloween that didn't finish.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like putting Christmas into their context, and none of this is done out of like. It's not done out of spite. It's not done to kind of with any bad intention in any sort of way.
Yeah. It's just
it's almost like this
their
whole film is a
understanding.
complete misunderstanding.
Yeah. They're creating Christmas as far as they can understand it, because they've never experienced it in any way. They've only experienced Halloween, and so this is how they assume it should be.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, it's just it's people kind of trying to. I think that's also a kind of important point to intellectualize further. That like I think it's a kind of observation that people will struggle to understand something that is beyond their experiences.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you try to, you won't get it right. And the importance of kind of trying to understand things before you try to actively sort of embody them or kind of project them or sort of use them to for your own gain or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like the understanding of it first.
Are you telling me that this, in 1993, was an exploration of cultural appropriation?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, to condense my last, like, 30-40 seconds of talk, yes, it's cultural appropriation.
It is, no, yeah,
at its finest.
And because they don't understand what they're doing, they don't understand the context for it, and yeah, so I can kind of see that.
Yeah, ultimately that's what it is.
Yeah, and then finally, we're 50 minutes into this sort of 75 minute film, and we are introduced to Oogie Boogie, one of the great Disney villains, with one of, if not the greatest Disney villain song of all time, Oogie Boogie's song.
It's so souly.
Yeah. Shout outs to Ken Page, who portrayed this character absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Brilliant voice. Really brilliant voice.
He was, I have just found out, the original Old Deuteronomy in the original Broadway stage version of Cats.
Yeah. And he was in Dreamgirls.
Yeah. This is my only experience of him, and I adore Oogie Boogie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's... I love the kind of change in tone, like they're bringing the soul, the kind of playfulness into it. I love the visuals here. Him kind of gambling and the sort of roulette wheel and bringing a bit of colour to it. And
yeah, because Halloween Town's very drab, oranges, brown, stuff like that, and he does bring this kind of splash of colour and it's a bit of excitement. Yeah,
and he reminded me of. I'm getting a lot of flashbacks watching this film. He reminded me of the ghosts in Casper.
Wow, that is a cut. That is a cut.
That is yeah. But yeah, I think I kind of got a bit of a Casper thing going on.
That is
which
something
I quite enjoyed.
I haven't experienced Casper in any form for.
You haven't? Have you not watched it?
No, for years.
You have watched it?
Yeah, okay. But like I was a kid. Like I don't remember it at all.
Yeah, me too. I mean, that's coming back at some point.
Okay.
Oh, I should have done that for my Halloween, shouldn't I? Oh no.
There you go.
I'm sure it'll come back at some point.
You'll find a way.
Yeah, for sure.
This is my favourite song of the film.
It's very different so it still feels kind of very sort of show tuney.
Yeah, I can see that.
As somebody who's obviously got a history in musical theatre,
it
feels very musical theatre-y.
Inform us about musical theatre. I know nothing.
Just sort of the lyrics. I mean, I'm not a musician. I'm not a specialist on music, but it feels very much like a musical theatre song, as do a lot of the songs. I mean, I kind of sat back and pictured it all being done on stage, and it could very much so be done on stage.
I'd love to see a stage version of this.
Yeah, and but this kind of brought a whole different vibe to the film. It was just kind of almost like an interval of like jazzy, bluesy kind of
I think the most
up tempo.
Yeah, I think the most kind of the biggest comparison I'd have in terms of Disney classic, the ones that are
would probably be Genie.
No, I think have you seen Princess and the Frog?
No, I haven't.
It's an okay film. Like the film's fine, but the villain song again is great, and that's got a lot of because it's set in New Orleans, so it's got a lot of blues and
Yeah.
jazz influences there.
Okay. Well, I think it's kind of reflects that sort of like the darkness and the kind of beaten down, like the sort of gravitas of that sort of blues scene.
Hmm.
Like that kind of idea of having like a dark, smoky jazz room. Like, do you know what I mean?
And
Like,
I think I don't know enough about America, but I feel like gambling goes on in New Orleans quite a bit. And obviously, he's sort of this embodiment of gambling. Like everything he does is gambling.
yeah, yeah. I think like, and it's not like Las Vegas gambling either.
Yeah.
Even though like visually, that's what it's kind of compared to. It feels like street corner gambling, sort of backroom gambling. Yeah, I mean, I've been to Memphis, which is obviously like the hub of soul, or was the hub of like blues, soul, rock, and even like when I went, which I think must have been like 2011, but even when I went, there was still kind of these sort of dark bluesy clubs with live music and this sort of genre,
Yeah.
and it was all kind of like felt very gravelly and very like earthy, and I think that what's really cool with this number in particular is that it has that and then brings the colour of Vegas to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a nice blending of the two.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's got Santa captive, and he's going to gamble with his life. And Sally comes in to try and free him. Nearly succeeds, but she catches. She is caught by Oogie Boogie as well.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Jack. And actually, when she's kind of on the way to do that, we have Sally's song, which is mainly her kind of lamenting that Jack is missing kind of what's in front of him, that she understands. And then we go to see Jack in his Santa role, which is so funny. Like, he's doing all this traditional Santa stuff. He's coming down the chimney, putting out presents, and then we're just seeing him loving it, and just this trail of devastation in his wake.
Yeah.
As the kids all find these horrifying presents that attack them.
These presents are really quite messed up as well. Some of them.
I'm fairly sure one of them's
like
just a live snake.
Yeah, well, isn't there one that's like a head of something?
Yeah, I think he just gives someone a head.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, it reminds me of something else, obviously, but I don't really want to talk about that, for reasons that we'll find out later.
Okay.
But, yeah, so it kind of feels reminiscent of, well, I mean, I guess it was done before this other film was released, but it feels sort of very typical of like that kind of Christmas goes wrong sort of story.
Yeah.
And like
I think I know what the other film might be. I think you might have given
Maybe?
too much away.
maybe I say no more. I'm going to keep my mouth shut about that until we get there. Yeah, one thing I did sort of, if we're just kind of linking this back to sort of the whole cultural appropriation thing, one thing that sort of struck me was that him kind of deciding that he could make Christmas work himself felt a little bit like the whole sort of white savior complex.
Yeah.
And that sort of like, that very sort of Western arrogance of feeling like, or thinking that you can sort of bring back certain traditions or certain sort of cultural, I don't really know how to describe it, but bringing things back and sort of making it your own and feeling like you may have somehow improved it. I don't think that's necessarily Jack's intention immediately. I think he sort of he brings back something, he tries to implement it, he tries to bring it back with the purest of intentions, but once it arrives, as Christmas was, it arrives back in Halloween Town. I think that there's this sort of, because of the misunderstanding, there's this idea that we can make it better, and you see that a lot nowadays. I mean, you see things like yoga, for example, where it's obviously kind of brought over from sort of Indonesia and places in Asia, places kind of in sort of subcontinental Asia, and it almost sort of like transformed to kind of fit and sort of appease the need of the Western world.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that kind of, again, I guess cultural appropriation in a sense, but
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting comparison. I don't necessarily think that's what they had in mind, but it's
not necessarily. I agree. But
I think it's a potentially good. It's a good representation of those ideas.
yeah, well, I mean, I think anything that's well done art, whether it's film, music, whatever, a book, blah blah blah, is open to interpretation.
Yeah.
And
Which
allows you
this
to
is something
see
we've
these
talked about.
things. Yeah, of course, and it allows you to kind of see reflections of real world issues, and so whether it is intended or not, it kind of, I think more than anything, it just sort of indicates the quality of the piece itself.
Yeah. And then, as we said, Jack gets shot down. He's in the graveyard, and this is where you have poor Jack.
I mean, a slight overreaction on the part of the government or whoever's in charge.
This is they're very. I think they're very obviously Americans. It's pretty typical reaction, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Without sounding racist, there's certainly like a glorification of the military. I mean, they get gunships out.
It's an imposter Santa. He's leaving. These toys could kill these children.
Yeah, I mean, it's not safe, is it?
No.
I don't know if gunships would be my first port of call, but yeah, it's certainly an extreme response. And he gets shot down into this graveyard.
Yeah, and this is where we get Poor Jack, which is the song where he kind of realizes that he has messed up, and he says he's starting to feel like himself. He can't wait for next Halloween. He realizes his wrongs, and he realizes that he still has time. He can set it right. Yeah. This is what we're talking about. The whole film is about this journey to this moment. And I think you mentioned earlier that he had this passion come back earlier for Halloween, but he just hadn't realized it. And I think this is where he realizes that.
Yeah, I think what's interesting that you said is that he realizes he can make it right, and just the kind of idea that he makes it right, but while still sort of implementing things that he's learned from Christmas Land and of Christmas. Like he still looks to kind of implement and bring back what he knows and what he's found and what he loves.
But this is instead of just appropriating a culture, is learning from it and using it to influence your own stuff.
Yeah, and it's this idea that he's making it right with progression.
Yeah.
Rather than kind of just going back to the way that things were, and this idea that like actually the merging of different cultural experiences can actually lead to something greater than what is already there.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and again, we don't know if that was what was intended, but
and to go back to the mayor being a hilarious bit. Suddenly, as soon as they see Jack get shot down, which they're watching him on like some kind of weird mystic TV, he immediately just gets in a car and starts driving around, yelling it out of a megaphone.
Yeah, so this for me feels like actually quite an accurate representation of the news and media and politicians.
Wow,
like,
this film is so ahead of its time.
Like it is it is fear mongering.
Yeah.
In its purest form, which I'm not sure was ahead of its time. I think fear mongering has been a thing for a very long time.
True.
But yeah, I mean, this is kind of what's also very interesting is obviously at the time of recording we're running up to Christmas, and the time of release we're running up to Christmas. We're in the middle of 2020, obviously based in the UK. We're at the end of 2020, thank goodness. Based in the UK, and we've kind of seen our government sort of put all of this stress on opening up the economy and the rest of the world for Christmas alone, and kind of in time for Christmas. And you sort of see these same tendencies in the mayor, coming kind of towards Halloween, and like
the mayor, Boris Johnson, former mayor of London. The connections are all there.
Oh my gosh.
Cut to
Disney's behind 2020.
Yeah, no. Cut to. Have you seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Yeah.
It's the meme.
Not
The
all
meme.
of it,
The meme
but,
from that where he's got all the mad board of conspiracy theories.
Yeah. So it's. Yeah, I think again it's kind of an accurate representation, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
I
then,
thought that was quite interesting.
And we get Jack comes back, saves Santa and Sally from Oogie Boogie. This is the one action sequence in the film, as Oogie tries to kill him with his various kind of gambling related traps.
Yeah, punnery going on there.
Yeah.
This is kind of. So at this point, one thing that I do have a question for you actually. At this point, does Jack is he aware that Sally has romantic feelings for him?
Probably. I think he's probably aware of that most of the time. He just doesn't think about it. It's like, have you seen season 3 of Doctor Who, where the Doctor has Martha as a companion, and he's upset over losing Rose, and Martha.
Season 3 of Doctor Who, as in the new.
Yeah, the reboot.
Or the
relaunch. And Martha's very much in love with him the whole season, and just offhand comment the next season where he mentions her and just goes, "She was in love with me." I think it's similar to that. Like Jack kind of realizes, but he's been so focused on Christmas and all of his own stuff that he's not even considered it.
Yeah. Okay. So he's kind of aware, but he's not sort of acknowledging it.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So
I might be wrong.
So if he's obviously he's saving them because he's a good person, or a good pumpkin.
Well, I mean, I think I don't think he necessarily knows that she's there. Like, he goes to save Santa because he assumes that Santa's been brought there. Because where else would the trio bring him?
Yeah, good point. But this obviously then kind of brings them together. He's almost forced to face her.
You see in the finale, it ends with those two kind of declaring their feelings for one another and standing together.
And kissing.
Yeah.
And feels very much like Jason of the Argonauts.
Hey, I'm consistent with my picks, all right?
Stop motion, cheesy kissing finishes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is obviously this is him, like, righting his wrongs.
Yeah, 100%. He making up, and Santa's able to, rectify things. There's still time for him to do so. Yeah,
I love that line. Is there still time to save Christmas? Of course there is. I'm Santa.
Yeah. Like, that's the kind of perfect thing to tell kids, Santa can always make Christmas all right.
Yeah. Even amongst quite literal hell. In the middle of actual hell. Yeah.
Although you get a feeling that in this world they're probably kind of used to it, because clearly this is the stuff they get at Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why Sally was kind of so scared. I mean, that she lives in Halloween Town. The whole point is that everybody should be scared all the time.
Yeah.
And also, can she die?
I don't know. Well,
That was
Oogie
the other
Boogie-
thing, is that
Oogie
there are
Boogie
gravestones.
does kind of die at the end. They
Yeah, I guess in a way he kind of like gets. Does he get eaten by bugs?
no, he is
Or-
bugs. He is bugs in a
Okay,
sack,
okay.
and they all fall into lava, and one gets stomped by Santa.
Yeah. Okay. He's bugs in a sack. He sort of dies.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah. I found it quite funny that there was a graveyard in Halloween Town where like everybody was dead anyway.
I think if you want to ask the existential questions of can you die if you're from Halloween Town, you're gonna need to go further up the creative food chain than me. You're gonna need to talk to Henry Selick and Tim Burton on that one. You know what? If either of us ever meet Tim Burton or Henry Selick, we should ask them.
That will be my one and only question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of A Night Before Christmas. Or The Night Before
Yeah.
Christmas. I always messed up the article. How was your first experience of this film?
I really enjoyed it.
I'm glad.
It did actually. So this is the first. Is it? Yeah, I think this is the first Christmas film I've watched this year,
Yeah.
and the first Halloween film. And it actually kind of got me in the mood for Christmas.
Yay.
Like it did. It did get me there.
Nice.
Especially when he was in Christmas Land. Yeah.
Just going to be listening to What's This for the next sort of 20 days, are we?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And like I said, I was kind of very impressed with the stop motion. I liked that they kind of worked with sort of wider shots, bigger sets. They clearly didn't hold back on anything. There was... I mean, they put time and effort into this, you could tell.
Yeah.
And... yeah, I thought it was kind of... like, although we've gone into like these sort of the concept of cultural appropriation and what these kind of merging of different cultures could be representing and all of that, it's very light-hearted. The whole thing is very much just kind of fun. I mean, that, like I said, I don't want to intellectualize it too much. It is getting there is kind of even a bit of a stretch at times because it is very much designed to just entertain.
Yeah, but that's kind of the point of the podcast, is we're going to dive too deep into things and
yeah,
go off on weird sort of tangential ideas that they probably didn't think about making it, but we can read into it. But yeah, at the end of the day, this is a film designed for kids. It's very entertaining. It's got a little bit of creepy elements. It's got some great Christmas elements. It's got some good laughs. It's got some amazing music.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even really spoken about the music too much. We've spoken a bit about the kind of Oogie Boogie song and
What's This and
What's
This
This,
is Halloween and stuff.
Yeah, but across the film, the music is kind of consistently good. It is very well written. The lyrics are smart as well. They don't cop out.
Yeah, this is one of my kind of favourite musical film soundtracks.
Yeah, it is very good. Yeah, I just kind of enjoyed it.
I'm really glad to hear you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I introduced you to this brilliant, non sort of typical Disney film.
Yeah, I'm glad I've added it to my repertoire.
Yeah. And I'll just kind of wrap up with some post-production. So the film came out in '93, and it was actually regarded as a bit of a sleeper hit, and that was mainly only because the budget is so much lower than most kind of big Disney films at the time. It received positive reviews when it came out, but it has actually since gone on. The acclaim for this film, everyone you talk to about The Night Before Christmas loves it. Even people who aren't huge fans of most of Tim Burton's work, myself, don't necessarily. They love this film that is very much his hands are in it, but he didn't actually create it. It received a nomination for Best Visual Effects at the Oscars. No surprise, we've just talked a lot in the last hour or so about how great those the stop motion is. Danny Elfman also won Best Original Score at the Golden Globes. Again, quite right, the music's stunning. It also won several kind of more niche awards. Won awards at more niche awards shows. that's a very kind of wordy sentence. At things like the Saturn Awards, which based around kind of fantasy and sci-fi. There has been talk of a sequel. We mentioned Disney first kind of began considering one in 2001 and wanted to use computer animation, but Burton convinced them to drop that. In 2009, Selick said that he'd be up for a sequel if Burton could think of a good story. And there were some reports last year that Disney were again considering a sequel, but I don't know how reliable those were. Honestly, I don't think this is a film that needs one.
It would be interesting to see them make another stop motion. I'm not sure. I think it's kind of established itself as sort of its own, almost like its own Disney genre. I know because obviously they're making a lot of live action remakes at the moment.
Yeah.
It would feel. I'm not sure with the kind of direction that Disney's going in with all these kind of reboots. I'm not sure it would necessarily make sense to release a kind of direct sequel right now.
Yeah, I mean, they don't tend to do too many sequels. Like, if you look at, like, the Disney animated classics list, the only ones that are, like, direct sequels, so you have Rescuers Down Under, Fantasia 2000, and then a couple of more recent ones, like Frozen 2 and Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Yeah, I mean, you got the Lion Kings, I guess.
So, they made a lot of sort of direct-to-video sequels that weren't, like, theatrical things. They weren't mainstream films. They were sort of direct-to-DVD things.
Right.
They are just not of the same quality.
No. Which, to be honest, sequels rarely are, I think.
I mean, if you look at like the sequels that Disney actually put out, I think both of the recent ones, Ralph Breaks the Internet and Frozen 2 are better films than the first.
I mean,
at least comparable.
I mean, I haven't seen Frozen 2 yet. I know.
I think maybe
Ralph Breaks the Internet certainly it does kind of give the first film a run for its money.
Yeah, I think maybe Frozen 2. I am of the contrary opinion to most people, which is I think it is a film with better music actually than the first, but it chickens out on some of the storytelling. But I've been talked around on some of my opinions on that, so I think it's good. So that's kind of any final thoughts on Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas?
Just that I really enjoyed it. Everything I've said is kind of that's it. Yeah, I just had a good time, and it's nice to see something that's kind of a real crossover of Christmas and Halloween. You could definitely watch it at either point in the year for either Christmas or Halloween.
I think thematically,
any time in between, I guess.
Yeah, I think thematically it's more of a Christmas film, but I also am not gonna, gate people, anyone who only wants to watch it on one of the holidays or both, or whenever they want. You want to watch this film in mid-March, go for it.
Okay, this is coming from somebody who, if you start celebrating Christmas before December 1st, you are dead to them.
Yes. 100%.
So for you to call it thematically a Christmas film and then say you can watch it at any point in the year.
Listen, I think it is more thematically a Christmas film, but I'm not going to be the person who said you have to consider this a Christmas film. That I don't want to tell people how they have to read art, how they have to appreciate art.
Is that what you'd say about Die Hard?
Well, I'll get into Die Hard in a second about something else. But before we do that, it is your pick next week. I want to hear what you're doing for Christmas. Pick. And you made some allusions to it, and I'm fairly sure.
Yeah, I think we can all guess. So the film
it's Bad Santa.
I've chosen. No.
No, I know it's not. I know it's not.
The film I have chosen is How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yeah.
Which
which
for
version?
me is the 2000.
The Jim Carrey one.
Film. Yeah, the Jim Carrey one. Which for me is just I can't go a year without watching this. Last year I was not in the Christmassy mood at all for various reasons. At any point, I just barely celebrated Christmas, and I still watched this film. I can't go a year without watching it. Even if I'm not feeling Christmassy, I try to feel Christmassy. I'm actually looking forward to seeing it because my girlfriend and I have actually booked to see it in like a themed cinema
Ooh,
next week.
lovely.
So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be fun. And that'll definitely get me feeling Christmassy even more than I am.
This is going to be an interesting one.
That's my pick.
This is going to be an interesting one for me because adaptations of The Grinch are very much like the adaptations of The Hobbit, which is this is a very short book, and these films are generally too long and try and put too much in.
Yeah, this one's nearly 2 hours.
Which this is a book that, like, I think the original animated version is under an hour.
Right.
Because that's how much material they have to adapt. So
yeah, I think. I mean, for me, I use this to kind of this is just about Christmas. When I watch this, it's less about the story and less about the actors and the characters and all of that stuff, and it's just about Christmas. It gets me really excited.
We'll discuss this next week, but this is
yeah,
not one of my favourites.
Okay, so this might be the first film. I mean, I know you had your reservations about Sixth Sense,
which I came round a lot more on this second watch.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a film I have seen more recently.
This might be the first one where we have to just agree to disagree at some
point.
point.
Yeah, and I'm not here to be negative. You know, there are things that I like about the film, and I will celebrate those as well.
Yeah, I mean that's what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
So so that's my pick.
And so, kind of before we wrap up, I wanted to introduce a little segment where we talk about, you know, something else a little outside of what this film that we've just discussed. And this week, I kind of wanted to talk about non-traditional Christmas movies.
Okay, so we're not kind of sailing too far from land.
Not on this one, no.
No.
But I think, as you can tell from my pick of The Nightmare Before Christmas, I am not necessarily a traditional Christmas movie kind of guy. My other idea that I threw out last week was The Life of Brian, but thinking more about it, I think that might be more of an Easter film with just a touch of Christmas.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, are there any direct references to Christmas in the film?
Well, there's the birth of Jesus at the start.
Well, yeah, but I mean beyond that.
Well, no, Christmas is a far more modern invention.
Yeah, yeah, true. But I mean, given that it's Monty Python, I wouldn't have been surprised if they had somehow made some sort of reference to Christmas. But yes, I think, it's very much feels like more of an Easter film than a Christmas film.
Yeah,
so feel free to do that one around Easter, because I'm very happy to talk about that.
I probably will. But some of my kind of more preferred kind of Christmas movies. So obviously, we mentioned Die Hard. That is like the poster child for, is this a Christmas film? The answer is yes. And if you say no, you are wrong. There are heavy Christmas themes. It's about family. And
so, can you only watch it at Christmas?
No, you can watch it whenever you want. It's also a good action film.
Okay.
It is a Christmas film. Yeah, it is a Christmas film, but it is also an action film. It is both. It can operate on both levels. But that is not my favourite action Christmas film.
Okay, tell me.
I'm a bigger fan of Lethal Weapon, and I think that is even more Christmassy. Lethal Weapon, it hits all the... Like, this is very much about, you know, Mel Gibson being this sort of cop with a death wish who gets brought into Danny Glover's family. It literally ends with them all having this family kind of meal together. It has this whole action sequence in a Christmas tree lot. And of course, what is more Christmassy than a shirtless Mel Gibson and I can't remember who plays the villain wrestling in a sprinkler, in a burst sprinkler.
I can think of a couple of things.
Yeah, okay, but so the Christmas setting is a very typical thing for the writer Shane Black to do. So other non-traditional Christmas movies of his, you can have Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and Iron Man 3. Both starring Robert Downey Jr.
Iron Man 3.
Good Christmas movie.
It's a good Christmas film. Yeah, okay. I suppose. Yeah, it's a Christmas film in a sense.
They have a whole sequence set in snow. He buys Gwyneth Paltrow's character Pepper Potts a massive teddy bear for Christmas.
Yeah, okay.
Going on, more great Christmas films. Let's stick with some comic book movies. I mentioned it earlier. Batman Returns, Christmas film.
Yeah,
Uh,
it is.
more kind of comedy action. You want In Bruges?
Oh, great film.
Great Christmas film.
Fantastic.
Great Christmas film.
Great Christmas film.
Um,
So is this the stuff you watch through December then?
I mean, if I were to do like a Christmas movies list, these would probably be on it. I did
These
a
ones, yeah.
Christmas movies list that I've written about. I might put it in the description. Gremlins is obviously another one with a horror tinge to it,
Yeah, yeah.
and kind of changing.
Surprisingly, kind of gruesome.
Yeah, but in a very actually
In a-
comedic way.
Yeah.
And to change the kind of tone completely, and sort of something a bit more highbrow. You have Carol, which was an absolutely stunning film from about 5 years ago with Kate Blanchett.
I haven't seen that.
It's wonderful. It is a great Christmas film.
Okay.
Okay, this one's pushing the boat a bit because it is more about the fact that it is on TV at Christmas every single year. Honestly, The Great Escape. There is nothing really Christmassy about that film, I think, but except for the fact that it is shown every single Christmas in the UK.
I haven't seen it.
How do you not watch TV at Christmas at all?
Not until I don't know.
I think
No, I don't.
I think it
well,
is. I
did.
think it is on every channel 24/7 for about a week.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to watch it this year.
Yeah, I will bet cash money that it is on. And of course,
Okay.
I couldn't end this segment without mentioning the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Oh God, I don't want to know anything about it. I don't know it. Haven't seen it, and I can't. Yeah, we'll be here for another hour if I let you talk too much about it.
It introduced Boba Fett,
Okay.
who is cool
Alright,
again
well,
now.
maybe you could do that next year.
I probably won't. It's pretty terrible.
So. Yeah. Okay. Christmas specials are. Not. Yeah. Is it a full feature film?
I don't.
Or is it like a short.
I don't know how long it is. I can't remember, but it's not good.
Okay.
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 Anyway, so that was
Don't
just
make me
some
watch it
non-traditional Christmas ideas. You know, don't have to watch Elf for the 13,000th time or It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes, you
Go
do.
watch Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Go watch Lethal Weapon. Go
Oh,
watch
I'm very
Carol.
traditional. I love the traditional films.
I know you do. I'm less so. Anyway, so that has been our episode on Tim Burton's The Night Before Christmas. You can find the podcast on iTunes, on Google Podcasts, on Stitcher, on Podbean, and on YouTube. You can follow us at Nostalgia Bubble on Twitter and at Nostalgia Bubble Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. I am on all social media platforms at Shuggie Says. That's SHUGGIESAYS. And Night.
And I am on Twitter at Nyreese, so NYEREES, and on Instagram at ReeseNye.
And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.